Or do I need to click it? Oh, there we go. I think we're on. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Field of Awakening with Bansi, Malin, Lauren, and Sofia. Well, this is our first time going live. Hopefully we'll get all the technology right and be able to talk to you guys and share what the field is and why we do it, how we do it, why we do it, and be somewhat in the practice a little bit, even though we're doing this presentation in a very different way than usual. So, how do we go about this? I wonder how we get more people to join. Anyway, my name's Bansi. I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico at the moment, and I started this practice 3.5 years ago, and it's something that touches me and moves me in a way that no other practice does. I feel like I can bring my whole self to the practice. I don't have to segment and bring just one part of myself or be limited. I can bring everything and be seen in my wholeness and supported in my wholeness, and other people can as well. So that's one thing that stands out for me about why I love the field, and I'll talk about other things here as we go on. But let's have everyone else introduce yourselves. Malin, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Malin, and at the moment I am residing on the countryside in Sweden, in 15 minutes away from the little town called Ullared. For those Swedish people who are joining and listening, they know what town it is. And so when did I come in contact with the Field of Awakening for the first time? Let's see, what year?
Last year? About a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, it was in January, I think. Year and a half. And I also feel that this practice is I feel I'm fully committed to this practice because it really brings so much amazing stuff to it, and I can practice so many different develop so many competencies, and I don't really know what to say right now. So.
Well, thank you. Lauren?
Okay. I'm Lauren. I'm in Boulder, Colorado right now. And am I talking loud enough?
It works.
Okay. Let's see. I came to the very first Field of Awakening, the first public one, at the Integral Center, and I've been pretty hooked ever since. There's something about the spaciousness of it, and that everyone is kind of co-creating and stepping into their leadership that I really like about it.
Cool, thank you. Sofia, short introduction?
Yes, my name is Sofia, and I live in Sweden, near Gothenburg. And, I'm quite new to the Field of Awakening. A friend brought me along only a few months ago, I think, or half year. 4 months ago, maybe. And I had this huge resistance first. I was really scared of showing myself, I think. Now, afterwards, I realized that. But it's been amazing, and I never know what will happen. And I feel that I both discover things in myself, about myself, and I also develop my intuition. Really widens my perspective, so it's not just a narrow perspective from me. And I'm learning, so I find it amazing, interesting, and it's expanding me. Yeah.
Cool. So, if anyone watching has a question, you can type it in the comments. We'll respond to anything you have a question about. Meanwhile, we're just going to talk about what is the field. Like, there's kind of these different levels. That we have this basic container that's like the foundational agreements and principles that hold the literally the foundation of the container, and then there's dozens of distinctions that we get to play with as we explore more subtle realms and deeper realms of being. And so, yeah, we can talk about those, and we can talk about also what makes this practice particularly unique from most other practices, which maybe is a good place to start with, because I know for me, maybe the biggest thing that makes it unique is you're not guided through things. Mostly we go to events and some group leader is guiding us through everything. There's a wasp in the room here. So there's something about reclaiming our inner authority and our inner voice. Like, I'm going to listen to the evolutionary impulse that's coming through my system and my body right now. What is my animal body wanting? Connecting animal to spirit. Like, what's my wholeness wanting to express right now? And if someone's telling me to do an exercise, even if it's a useful, helpful exercise, which I've done many of those, but if they're saying, okay, do this movement, turn to this partner, say this thing, do this exercise, then I'm following an external directive. And I'm not listening to something coming through me that's being birthed in this moment that I've never thought of before, which is what the invitation is in the field, for us all to listen to that. Each of us connecting to Source, each of us feeling what is our uniqueness, and then interacting in the cosmic playground together. And that's really exciting to me. And I don't know any other practice that's not being guided, whether it's, yoga or anything else. There are very useful practices. This practice gets us in touch with our own connection to Source. So we're finding a very deep, ultimate empowerment and supporting each other for that. And in that sense, the field of awakening is more of a container than it is a particular method. And within that container, we do almost any other method at different times. Whatever serves our health and vitality and aliveness the most is what we can engage in. So it might be healing, it might be dancing or sleeping or cuddling or laughing or whatever is coming up right now in our authenticity. So, yeah. I guess true to the spirit of the field of awakening, we haven't planned any script for this Facebook Live, so it's like, well, what's alive for us right now? What are we feeling? What do we want to talk about? So who else wants to, say something?
There's something in that I really like being with sometimes it can feel uncomfortable, being in that space of what's happening next? I don't know. And listening for what's next.
Yeah, that pregnant pause, that the invitation for the unknown. I love that.
I also love when the thing about really listening to what comes up in the moment, not following a system, because when I've been to workshops, I felt sometimes that it didn't really match what was alive or what was real for me in the moment, although it was a good exercise, and that the way I live life is also, I'm not maybe following an exact yoga routine or so, but every day trying to feel, to sense in my body, what does it need right now, what do I need, and that's what I love with the field also, that it really is about tuning into what is needed and not following the certain routine.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
There is a special sense, like I've noticed since I've been so marinated into this practice, and when I go to other practices, I want to dive into that, like listening, to that deeper listening, to feel the group, like to feel this organism that this group is forming, and to just, there is a very special, distinct feeling to that particular listening that is really like diving deeper and let that come through. And I can be a little bit almost frustrated sometimes when I go into a practice that is already set and I feel something else. I want to connect to this group. I want to connect to the life that is here and now and that wants to come through. Mm. And I think that's a very special feeling. That's what I'm yearning for all the time. What makes it so nourishing in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of like our culture is so isolative. Culture, I mean, most of the world, particularly the Western world, we think of ourselves as individual islands. And so even when we're going into a group format, or even going to a guru or therapy workshop, it's all about your individual process and your individual awakening, if you will. And here the invitation is to actually feel a deeper connection with others in the group, as well as our greater environment and nature. So there's like, oh, wow, it's like, what's it like to be part, not an island, but to be part of this integral whole? I still have my unique identity and my unique expression, but I'm also an integral part of this larger system, and it becomes very, very viscerally felt that I am part of this organism, even as like the four of us right now are dropping into some sense of an organism. And I guess another principle in the field, which is good to note, because is slowing down. It's a bit of a trick and a paradox. We're doing Facebook Live, we're doing a video that people are going to watch. They want to be maybe entertained or at least informed. And at the same time in the field, we're often pausing for long periods of stillness and silence, listening and waiting for a deeper authenticity to move us somewhere, rather than just act fast or act out of habit, act out of just a mental idea of something. So I'm noticing that paradox even right now, like, oh, I want to talk, I want to entertain people, I have a mountain of information I could deliver, and yet it's more important to like slow down and feel connected, and feel an authentic connection to something that's happening right now. What was it like to hear that, Lauren? I saw you take a deep breath, and it's like, ah.
Yeah. It's like relief. I think with a faster pace, my body almost unconsciously tenses.
Yeah.
And then just even with the thought of slowing down, it's like, yes.
Yeah.
I can feel in my body, it's also easily going into contraction. And then when we're allowed to wait and slow down, it's just like, it's kind of expanding and creates more space within.
Mm. Mm. So I know there's a few people tuning in to us live. If you want to pop your name in the comments, we'd love to know you're there, or you can remain anonymous if you want. And if you have any questions or want us to talk about something, feel free to ask away.
Yeah, I'd also invite the audience to like slow down with us, or kind of feel into what's going on in your body, your space, and then see if you can feel connected to us through the internet.
Nice. Which kind of leads me to another distinction around talking from an experience rather than about it. So it's like, I can talk about the field all day, but can we be in it? Can we feel it? Can we talk from being in the space? Which might not be as prime time ready for entertainment purposes.
I think that just you mentioning, Lauren, when you mentioned just feel into your body, that little cue, how much it did for me also to feel more of my body, and then I also feel more connected to you again. How that impacted me.
Yeah, I could also feel in me a kind of shift from thinking about this as a live video, a shift to actually feeling the field. And in my mind it's a little like, well, how is that happening? But at the same time in my body and in my whole being, I really like it.
I want to share something about something I really feel so fascinated around each time it's clear in the field. Like when we're really dropping in together, when everyone is dropped in and we are really one organism, then it's so beautiful how this organism organizing itself, how it moves through different ways. Like something is happening and the attention moves to someone and it just happens. Things just happen and there is not like it's so beautiful how it unfolds by itself. Maybe that person needs some healing, or we need to share something around, or there's a dance needed or a song coming out. And then we again move to this silent in-between time where nothing's happening. You can feel the shift, like this wave is coming to its end. And then something new opens and the attention turns somewhere else. And it can be a totally different experience. And then it goes into another wave. And like we had a field, Sofia and I was in a field in a house where it was very, very clear, 4 waves during these 3 hours, we had 5 very, very clear and very different waves of processes happening. And it was so amazing how everyone just felt this sense of how we are so connected to each other. I feel if you're not, if someone is, we can feel, even though we don't maybe share what is happening, it can affect us, and we're just feeling into the same space. And yeah, it's amazing how it can affect everyone in the room. And if we let go, if we surrender to not knowing, or to just follow the impulse, the deeper impulse, beautiful, beautiful things happen.
That nobody thought or planned, right?
Yeah, exactly. I had no idea.
Yeah. And there's this need to dare to wait, I think, maybe, to really, and also like to actually use those the pauses. What did you call them? Between the waves, to have them like resting points. I can feel that, and accept that. Okay, now nothing is happening, and that's fine. That's totally how it should be, because it's kind of, maybe we're tuning into what is the next thing, what is arising in us, what is needed. So there need to be these resting points, I think, or I feel it that way.
Yeah, and I also have experienced this. Sometimes the nothing is happening is a stuck energy. Like everyone feels nothing is happening, and yet it is an energy of, it's not a resting, it's not a waiting, it's more like we need to kind of get the flow going, because somewhere it's stuck. So we kind of, what is it? We try different things, how can we get flow, the energy flowing? And so those little subtle things, that can differ. And I also like that this practice is a way to develop that capacity to feel into the subtle things and to distinct, discern, like what is, how they can be of different nature.
Hmm. Hmm. I notice I'm noticing this. I'm dropping all the way into the field, would just sort of leave this whole Facebook Live thing completely behind, and then, okay, people are going to watch this, and they're going to be watching this silence and wondering what's going on, and I want to entertain, I want to have them engage and have them receive, and but how to entice, how to invite someone into this interactive experience that we have, which we will have, I guess I'll mention, a free Field of Awakening event happening this Thursday, which is 20, 21, 22, 22nd, and it's going to be 11 a.m. start time for 2 hours. In America, in Sweden, it'll start at 6 p.m. and there's a link on the Field of Awakening page if you want to.
Well, 11 a.m. Mountain Time, right?
Mountain Time, yes, correct. Thank you. So if you see this before then, or come to another event, but join us for by the way, the Field of Awakening is also done in person, and there's an online version. So because you're watching Facebook Live, if you're hearing this or the replay, then you're going to join the online version. But if you happen to be in Gothenburg or Santa Fe or Boulder, you might be able to find a live group as well. But join us. We have the online event happening Thursday, and we're going to start a 6-week series so that we can dive deeper in a closed group and closed container. That's going to also happen starting sometime in April, most likely.
I would like to hear you share about the principles and agreements in the practice.
Me?
Basics. Look at don't you see that?
You talking to me? All right. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. There's 3 agreements. Wait, that's 6. There's 3 agreements.
Yeah.
And these are, and there's 3 principles. These are the foundations for how we relate. And they're important because if you're starting in the field and things aren't going well, this is like, this is how we can steer ourselves back on track by using these agreements and principles. But then after a while, they might become second nature, and they don't need a whole lot of attention anymore. Just like you learn to ride a bike, you don't have to think about it anymore after a while. And then you can pay attention to more subtle, more advanced qualities and capacities. But let's talk about the 3 agreements. The first one is, anyone want to help me? I claim 100% responsibility for my own experience. I claim 100% responsibility for my own experience. And so, what does that mean? Like, if we try it on, for some people that might be like, duh, I live that way. For some of you, it'll be like, that seems weird. But what happens if you try it on? And it's like, if I'm claiming 100% responsibility for my experience, that means I'm not going to be playing victim. It means I'm not going to be blaming other people. I'm not going to be living a life complaining about things all the time. It means if I'm not liking something, I can do something about it. If I'm wanting something, I can ask for it or move towards it, or away from something I don't want. I have a choice. You might not have a choice about everything that happens in your life, but you do have a choice about how you respond to it. So it's really about choosing empowerment about how you respond to something, to life, to everything. Like, okay, this is my life right now. How am I going to respond to it? How can I choose the life I want? How can I... Yeah. Does anyone want to add something? Or
Yeah, I want to say here, this is really important for me during times like this where maybe I'm listening to you talking about the principles and agreement, and I realize, I don't have to sit here rigidly and like totally focus on you. I can be taking care of myself while listening, like, in a more nourishing way. For me, that's like taking responsibility for my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's like also like owning your experience that is included in, and I can hear you say something and then I can make up things in my mind about what you mean, and I can become angry, or I can project things onto you. But to own my experience is also to not tell you what you mean, but maybe more like, okay, I hear this, and is that correct? Or I cannot say that, you are like this or you are like that. It's more like, I notice in me when you say that I have kind of I imagine that you might think that of me or someone else. Yeah.
So in other words, let me say that a different way. I'm not going to claim responsibility for your experience or even assume that I know what your experience is. If I think I have an idea of what your experience is, I might check it out. Say, seems like you're experiencing this. Is that true? Yeah?
It's very easy to project stuff onto others and not to assume things that might not be correct.
Yeah, and that, for me that's been one of the best lessons in the field, not to assume things and not to let them stay. I mean, you know, if you assume something, it's easy to just, okay, maybe, you don't know, and then it kind of stays somewhere, but you know, you kind of forget it, but it still stays. To really ask when there is something that is not clear, or so. One of my best lessons there.
Mm-hmm. Shall we go to the second one? Which is, drum roll please.
Totality.
Totality. You want to say something about that?
I am committed to be here the whole of the time, you know, being total here the time, and to show myself as much as I can, and to be willing to have reflections from others. I'm willing to look at my shadows. Yeah, someone can continue.
Yeah. Full participation. I'm willing to reveal. I'm willing to be seen, be shown my blind spots, to look at my shadow, to help others find their shadow.
And to even like name to the group when you're feeling like you're not actually totally here.
Mm-hmm. Like in some ways I could say I'm not totally in this group of 4 because I have some of my attention on this video Facebook Live thing.
Yeah. It kind of, that informs us.
It makes me thinking about the reveal first distinction of showing myself. Like if or to reveal, actually, like I really feel like this when I see you. I can, like, Bansi, looking at another way, it makes me really disturbed. I can feel some tension in my body. That's not true right now. But it could be. Like, I don't know what you're looking at. And I feel in my system that, it really distracts me. To show that instead of being more like hiding that part because I want to be nice or I want to be likable. Or, just want to.
Cool. Well, let's move along then. Third agreement.
Extend regard.
Extend regard. What does that mean?
I really care about you. Your experience.
Yeah. I'm putting these up on the screen, by the way. You guys can't see it. But yeah, for me, that means I really care about your experience. And I'm going to consider you in my decision making. I'm going to consider what's happening for you in my process. And for me, it's really important as a balance to the first agreement, because people can be attached to, hey, we're all responsible for ourselves, and if you don't like what I'm doing, go see your therapist, you know? But that's not really honoring that we're all interconnected. We're all, on some level, part of an organism, and the more we make that conscious, the more we can actually be caring, left hand caring for the right hand, right? Like, we get to care for ourselves. And it's not even that you're caring for someone else, but you see, like, oh, here's another part of me that needs attention. So if I feel like screaming and jumping and I see someone else is in a really tender spot and crying and being held by somebody, it's like, oh, well, maybe how can I, and it's not to limit anyone, but how can we listen for the win-win-win where everybody is being able to somehow fulfill their own life expression and get their needs met. So maybe I go to the other side of the room and scream into a pillow or something that doesn't disturb them but still allows me to be with what's happening in my system. Just as an example, it wouldn't, you know. Many other possibilities around having an impulse too, because we don't always have to act out an impulse just because we have it. And that's a whole nother level of distinction that we can also play with. Some of us don't have any filters, and we're just always allowing everything through. And what's it like when we just sit with an impulse and not actually act on it? And others of us are always holding our impulses in, and we never let it out. So how do, this is the container in the field of awakening where how can we experiment with being more expressive when we're often very subdued, or if we're always blah, 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 how can we actually just hold that in and sit with something long enough to let it crystallize into something interesting? So I dovetailed third agreement into relationship to impulse distinction, but yeah, these are all aspects of the field. And we do want to care for each other, and it's about family, it's about community, it's about friendship, it's about honesty, it's about intimacy, it's about transparency, connection, and personal sovereignty. It's not one or the other. People don't also really get that paradox. Yes, we're becoming part of this larger organism, and at the same time, paradoxically, somehow, I am more unique and more sovereign in my own space because of that. And I don't think that's something that can even be understood mentally until it's experienced. So, I'm aware of time. I don't want to go forever on the video. Maybe no one will watch it if it goes on forever. We do have the three principles, which we could say are presence, connection, and surrender. Being present with self, present with others, feeling the group as an organism, and surrendering our mental ideas and expectations so that we can allow the unknown, allow universal intelligence or our own evolutionary impulse to inform us and move us and inspire us and move us forward. And that's the fun of the fun of the field. I hope whoever watches this now or later gets a little bit of a sense of that from our shares.
What time is it?
39 after.
There's one thing, I don't know if you have time for that, but this thing what you, Malin, said, that always show yourself first, and you, Bansi, also talked about it. This is something that I feel is, I would like to hear or talk a little more about that, because I can feel that it's important, and sometimes I don't really know how to do it, and I think it's an important thing. So if you have time, maybe you could
Yeah.
explain it a little more?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say always, but it's useful and helpful in a lot of circumstances and in general. It's kind of like if I come to you and I'm like, just start asking you questions. Maybe you're in maybe you're crying, or something, or maybe that's trying to think of a good example. But you're something's happening in your system, and you're in a process, right? And then I come in and I'm like, what's happening? Tell me what happened. And it's like it actually can be more important to be more in process than to go into a mental interpretation of what's happening. And so I guess there's a few layers to that. So on one level, it's helping to stay in the experience, and also it helps to build trust. Like, oh, wow, I saw you were crying, and I felt this softness in my chest, and I feel a lot of care for you. Is there something I can do for you? That's different than if I come to you and be like, is there something I can do for you? It can be a little jarring, right? So you're actually creating connection, creating empathy, creating trust, and not taking someone else out of their experience either.
And it's kind of you, because it's important also what happens when someone is crying. What happens in me can be part of it, or is part of it, or maybe
Yeah, so then it's just like, oh, wow, when you said that, I felt this.
Right.
And then it's not about, a lot of people in life, they're trying to have conversations about some ultimate truth that's out there. And they're not in their own bodies, they're not in their own experience. And so it's not about me saying whether your experience is right or wrong, because that's what a lot of people do. Like in the normal world, I'll say I'm experiencing this, and it's like, well, how can you be experiencing that? That's not right. You shouldn't be experiencing that for whatever reason they have in their judgment. But it's a totally different thing to just come from, wow, I notice as you share that I am having this experience. I'm feeling this. My body feels this way. And it drops us all into something that's more experiential and true because we're experiencing it. It's not a theory. It's not a theory. It's not a philosophy. It's a direct experience. And so, but the more I can share my direct experience, the more we're all dropped into direct experience rather than having a philosophy about what's happening.
Yeah, and so it could also be a way of, when we talked about this, that before the wave there is kind of a point when there is still point. So a way of getting the energy move to the next wave is kind of to share what comes up in me when I see something that happens in you, instead of just telling that, what are you doing, or what is that?
Yeah.
Or to think in terms of doing, like, oh, you're crying, let me do something for you. Let me hug you or hold you, or let me give you a Kleenex, let me do something to somehow ease it, rather than just be with what is and notice how it impacts me. Right? That's another thing that we play with, is like, how can we have the capacity to be with discomfort? Because the field of awakening is not about, we often feel very good, but it's not about feeling good. Sometimes it's about, wow, I'm feeling anxious. Can I actually stay with that anxiousness? Can I stay with this experience rather than pretending it's not there or avoiding it, or all the different strategies that we play. Yeah, go ahead, Malin. I see you.
I think it's an important thing, because sometimes we have ideas about how we should be. I should be so open. If I feel like protected, I'm not opening to you. That's not the primary goal, to be open and to be vulnerable, but to be authentic and transparent. Like, I don't feel trust, so I need to protect myself. It's not about I have to if I have protection, I have it for a reason. So instead of trying to do something about that protection, to be with it and to create safety around it. Like, oh, I can be, people can hold space for me if I feel like I'm not perfect. Like, I'm not all this open, or I'm not all this, like, this or that, or loving, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think I'm something I was about to say, but learn.
I'm feeling amused right now because as you guys are talking about this, I'm starting to feel anxious and like reaching some threshold in me of like, oh, we've been talking about, like, let's come back down, like, into experience a little bit more. Yeah.
As you say that, I feel an appreciation, and I feel my own energy relax a little bit.
Lauren is the anchor here today. Yeah, it's easy to go into mind shadow mode.
All right, if anyone watching has a question, it's now or never, because we'll wrap up here in a minute. But if you want us to say something about the field, pop it in the comments, and we'll say something about it.
I think we need to do this.
What's that?
There's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
That we need for live session.
I also feel it's a little bit like the finger pointing at the moon. And so watching this video is like just watching the finger, and it's like there's no way we can get people to really see the moon until they have the experience.
I keep having the urge to just like do the practice.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit weird in this format with Facebook Live.
Fishbowl.
We could try that at some point. What do you think, Facebook world? Do you want to Facebook a Field of Awakening? Or Fishbowl a Field of Awakening? Watch us in practice? And could we actually do it, knowing that we're being watched? Because I think that would influence us in some way.
But that would kind of be part of the field, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, knowing we could talk for 1,000 hours, we'll keep this video under an hour. We want to save stuff for another time too. But is there anything we want to add in closing? Do we each want to say goodbye in some way?
Well, there's one more thing that has been coming up that I want to share that I feel is a really important part of the field of awakening, which has to do with, I guess it might be the presence connection principles, maybe a part of those, where your awareness is with yourself and then you're expanding it out to include each other, the group, the space in the room, like developing the capacity to expand your awareness rather than having awareness here and then awareness there.
Yeah.
Like being able to hold awareness with multiple aspects at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's core. And I guess that's something that Malin and I talked about last week too, which is, this is a practice about expanding our capacities, and in that way in particular, and in many other ways, it's like we're not just having a good time, although we tend to have a good time, but this practice helps us to evolve it's really evolving consciousness for humanity. It's evolving our own consciousness so that we have more capacity, more awareness, more attentional capacity, perspectival capacity, and more capacity to be with, to be present, to love, to receive, to contribute.
And that practice really extends out to life. What I learned in this practice, I have so much use of it in my whole life. Those principles, I apply them to everything. And it really, really does amazing things for the rest of your life.
All right, well, on that note, we'll leave people wanting more. Come see us on Thursday. Come join us for an interactive. Thursday is not like this. Thursday means you're on video with us. We're interacting. We're in the practice. And if you miss Thursday, we'll have more events in the future. So just check the calendar and be in contact. Would love to have you join us. Whoever you are. Yeah, you watching the video right now. Join us. All right. Let's just say goodbye.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Sincerely.